Hello YouTube, it's Carlos the Rook, and I want to bring you round one in the Chess Zone December action. In this round, I play my little buddy Sidha. I really like him and his dad, they're really cool. And he's playing the white pieces and I'm playing black pieces. Sidha's live rating was 1995. I think his monthly rating was 1924, and my live rating at the time was 1757, and my monthly was 1746, I believe. So he starts off with d4. I respond d5. He goes c4, going into a queen's gambit. e6, queen's gambit decline. Knight c3, and here I play a6. It's a sideline I got from Gotham Chess. I subscribe to Chessly, so I take the opening courses over there, and so this is a sideline that Levy gave me. The normal move here is knight f6. So I can tell from his expression that Sidha did not know this line. So he plays knight f3, which is what we want. We capture the pawn on c4. And the thing is, we intend to keep that pawn on c4 if we can. So he played e4, which is an aggressive continuation. We go b5, declaring our intentions to keep the pawn. And he goes a4 to break up the pawn chain. So we break up the pawn chain with b4 hitting the knight. Now we gain tempo on the knight. And now the best move here is knight e2, which looks counterintuitive. But the knight goes from e2 to g3, and Stockfish says that's the best move. But most people don't play that move. See how it goes knight a2. And so here I go bishop b7. This is all opening theory I got from Levy. And the move here should be bishop captures c4. And then I take the pawn, the center pawn. So we trading my pawn for a pawn. So that's the best move in the position. But Sidha doesn't play that. He plays e5. He doesn't want to give up his pawn. And that's dinged as an error. Now black has an advantage of 1.62. So I play my opening prep. Bishop d5. This is prep for me. And here he plays knight d2. I'm letting the computer run for a few seconds to see what the computer says is the best move in this position. It's fluctuating between bishop g5 and knight d2. Bishop g5, queen c8, queen c1, knight d2, knight c6, knight captures c4. So it's fluctuating between these two moves. So see how I played knight d2. Now I'm out of opening prep, because my prep was for bishop d2, hitting at the b pawn. So this taking me out of opening prep. So here I go knight c6. And my idea is I'm hitting the d pawn. So I'm putting the d pawn under pressure. So I'm coming to the realization that I'm going to lose the c pawn. No problem. He take the c pawn. Whichever way he take with the bishop or knight, I take with the bishop. And then I get this d pawn. So I'm still going to end up being up a pawn. So that's the line I'm going into. So see how it captures on c4. And here, the engine doesn't want me to capture. It wants knight on g to e7. So it just wants me to develop my knight. Maybe with the idea of going to f5 is what the engine wants. And it has me with an advantage of 1.98, almost 2 full points. But I go bishop capture c4, and I lose a lot of the advantage. Now it's only 0.99. Bishop captures c4, queen captures c4, d4. Queen captures d4, knight captures d4, and now my threat is the fork. I'm threatening the fork on c2 between the king and the rook. So see how it castles. And here I thought briefly about going to c2 anyway, forcing the rook to move, but I felt like that was pointless. And I also was thinking bringing the knight back to c6 with the idea of bringing this other knight to e7 to g6, hitting the pawn twice. But I just like f4 or bishop f4 to g3 to f4 just solidifies that. So I thought the best move would be c5. Now I don't have to worry about this pawn being weak or getting hit. Like let's say the bishop comes to d2, double hitting the pawn. Well, I could have just played a5 then. But that's what I was thinking at the time. Then I could go knight c6. But the engine says that's not the best move. I should have went knight c6 right away. So see how it goes. Bishop f4 to protect the pawn because it's a weakness. And the engine saying is once bishop e3, knight c2, rook on a d1, knight captures, f captures. That's just ugly. Doubling the pawns like that. But the engine wants this for white. I don't know about all that. I go knight e7, and now my idea is to bring this knight to g6, hitting the bishop, hitting the pawn, and then bringing the other knight to c6, hitting the pawn twice. And the engine saying I have a dynamic duel of knights. So see how it brings the rook to d1. I'm not sure what his idea was here. Maybe he knew my plan was to bring the knight to c6 and he wanted to put some pressure on an open d file. Hold on, let me see what the best move was. Knight c1. That's another thing I thought he had to do was reroute the knight. So knight c1 to either e2 or d3 in order to get it back on this side of the board. The knight is just absolutely horrible here on a2. So he plays rook d1. And here I go knight d5. So I had a long think right here. So my original idea was go knight g6. And then hitting the bishop and then bringing this knight to c6. But the bishop just goes back to g3. The f pawn comes up and protects, and that's solidified. So I'm making no progress. So I felt like with the knight d5, I'm hitting the bishop like I wanted. If this bishop takes, my pawn takes, and then I got a pass pawn, and these gonna get to rolling downhill. So here Stockfish says the best move is g3. Once again, it looks counterintuitive, but I guess g3, knight captures, g captures, and you cement these pawns here. But Sidha captures the knight, and now I capture back. So now I got a thrust of pawns, a pawn phalanx, I believe they call it, in order to roll down the board. And now he goes bishop e3. His idea is to take the knight and double up the pawns. And if I move the knight, then this pawn here becomes weak. So I had another long think trying to figure out how do I get out of losing the pawn. And I came up with this idea. Knight to e2 check. King is forced to h1, only move. d4, hitting the bishop. And the bishop goes to either c1 or g5, maybe g5, h6, bishop h4, and then the knight can come out to f4, because the worry is knight e2, then the knight has no square to go. So you gotta find an escape route for the knight. So I go knight e2 check, king h1, d4 hitting the bishop. Now I feel like the bishop should go to g5. And with g5 I go h6, bishop h4, and the knight escapes to f4. That was my idea. But here Stockfish wants knight c1 for white. Knight c1, knight capture c1, bishop capture c1, and then it's a king move. Maybe cross castling. Let's go down that line real quick. Knight c1, knight capture c1, bishop capture c1. Oh, it wants king d7. King d7? Why king d7? Why not just cross castling? Why king d7? I don't understand king d7. Why king d7? Is it worried about e6? We just take. I don't know about that line. But see how I play bishop d2. And here, I was trying to figure out what to do. Because I don't want my knight to get trapped. So I know d3 and the knight can go to d4. And then c4 protects that pawn if the bishop moves. But then the pawn on b4 becomes weak. So I don't know if I got enough time to get a5 in. So I come up with this other idea, which was b3, hitting the knight. So I go b3. And my idea was the knight goes to c1 and then I trade knights. So Stockfish recommends knight c1, knight captures, rook captures. That was my idea. And then I can still push these pawns up. Maybe bring the rook to c8, push the pawn, bishop to e7, castle, and then bring a rook to d8. And then these pawns roll. I got 3-on-1. That's got to be winning. It has to be winning 3-on-1. With connected pass pawns. So that's what I thought. But Sidhar played something different. He played rook on f to e1. And now this is completely losing. It has black, Stockfish has black at 5.12. And here, once again, I wasn't sure, do I capture the knight or do I go d3? So I wasn't sure which way to do. With d3, the knight comes out on c3, and then knight captures c3, bishop captures c3, and the bishop becomes active. So that was the thing about that line. So I felt with capturing on a2, this pawn is one square from queening and rook to the b8. So this is the line we went down. So bishop captures a2, rook e2, rook b8. And now my idea is to capture on b7. And then the rook comes to b1 in order to queen. But then after I went down this line, I seen there's a defensive resource, bishop a5, which Sidhar found. And bishop a5, this pawn is protected. And here Stockfish wanted me to go d3 to hit the rook. d3, rook on e to d2, c4. But I didn't go down that line. I looked at d3, but my problem with playing d3, this is the way I looked at the position. If I play d3 too early, then he has the resource bishop c3, and then I'm blockaded. So I didn't feel like d3 c4 was right, because I don't want to allow bishop c3 and to get blockaded. Then my pawns don't move anywhere. So I played bishop e7, which the engine feels is wrong. He plays rook on a1 to go for the pawn. And this time I take the time to castle. I'm going to lose the pawn. I have no problem with that. I still got the connected passes. Rook captures. And here I go rook b3. My idea here is to put pressure on this b pawn. I'm going to pull the second rook on the b file. Maybe reroute the bishop and try and hit this pawn from behind. Or maybe trade bishops. I don't know yet. But I'm just going to try and put the rook here. Oh, also you could just start rolling these pawns. Rook b8, c4, c3, and you roll her. And black has back rank mates, back rank weaknesses that you can take advantage of. So Sidha goes rook d2. And I guess his idea is not to let these pawns start pushing. And I go bishop g5, hitting the rook. Stockfish doesn't like that. Let me see what it wanted. It wanted f6 to just hit at this pawn. And he drops back rook d1, which I felt was really wrong. Because now here comes rook on f to b8, hitting this pawn. And he goes bishop c7, which I figured he might do. And here I had a tactic. Initially, I thought rook b7 and bishop d6. But I can take this pawn. Rook captures. If bishop captures, rook captures. And the other way is rook captures, rook captures, rook captures. And then this pawn becomes weak. So, let me just show that. Rook captures b2. If rook captures, and this pawn is weak, maybe he can do something like this. And the engine is just saying c4. Oh yeah, c4, because he can't take because he got back rank weaknesses. He can't take. It's just c4. h4. c3, just ignoring it. Wow, c3, just ignoring it. We're going to queen. You can take here. We're going to queen. It's saying rook captures d4, c2. Rook c4. Then just queen, and white has to give up the rook. So that's that line. But we went into the other line. Because once he wins bishop c7, I capture on b2. I'm getting the pawn. Bishop captures b8. Rook captures a2. So now I want another pawn. Now I got these pawns unstoppable. So he goes bishop d6, hitting at this pawn. And just like in the other variation, I got c4. The rook can't take because then I back rank mate him. He goes h4, hitting the bishop. And here I thought I had to go bishop h6 and lose one pawn. But I don't have to. I have a resource that I found, bishop d2. And now I'm blocking that rook. I'm really glad I found bishop d2 because the way I've been playing the last several months, I wouldn't have found this idea. But bishop d2 is a great resource. It blocks the rook, interfere with it taking his pawn, and now these pawns can just march up the board. So he goes bishop a3. He's trying to protect that queen square and trade the bishops. So here I was actually thinking c3, bishop to c5, c2, bishop has to come back to c3 to a3. Then I can just capture with the rook, and if this rook captures, queen. So let me show it. c3, bishop here, here, If you take with the rook, queen. So I thought the best move here would be to come back here and try and stop. And Stockfish is saying just queen. But I was thinking this. And if this, and the rook falls. But Stockfish is just saying rook f1. d3. Well, I want d3. What did d3 do? Oh, so we got d3, bishop h6, bishop f4, and c1 queen. But d3 is put as the best move. I think just queen. So that's what I had an idea. But I went the other way. I just wasn't, I felt like that was a winning line, but I wasn't sure if I was seeing everything correctly. So I went for the simpler continuation. I went rook captures a3, rook captures d2, and then d3. So now I got connected passes, and the rook cannot stop two pawns, three squares from on the third rank. So that I know from studying in games with Levy. And here he played f4. He's trying to get some counterplay, get his pawns rolling down the board before mine's hit. So I took the pawn here. So I have another passer. Now I got three passers. He has 4-on-3 on the king side, but none of them are passers. He goes g4. He's pushing aggressively, trying to create a passer and get counterplay. So I go g6, just to alleviate any back rank threats, because I felt like rook to b2 was coming. And he goes f5. I take on f5. He captures back. And I go rook a5. And my idea is to hit at these pawns. He goes rook b2. He's trying to go f6 and then mate. So I offer a trade. Rook g2. King to f8. And now he goes f6. I capture on e5. And he goes rook a2. And for a second I thought I had to watch out for back rank mate. But I go rook e6 protecting that. He goes rook a4, c3. The pawns are unstoppable. Rook c4, c2. If you go here, this pawn queen. If you wait, this pawn queens. So it's unstoppable. The rook cannot stop these two pawns. He goes king h2. I capture on f6. Rook c3. d2. Rook c8. King c2. Rook c8. Why are they doing it like that? Rook c8. King g7. Rook captures c2. d1 equal queen. Check. I move out of check. Rook a2. He's trying to keep the rook alive. But I knew I was getting the rook immediately. Queen d6 check. King h3. And I got a fork on the rook. King g3. Hold on. King g3. I take the rook. King g4. Queen g2 check. King h5. And here Sirha resign because it's make the next move on queen g6. So this was a good game against a strong opponent. And I really like the way I played this game. I think opening prep gave me an advantage. And this one went my way. Who knows what happened the next time we meet up. Thank you for watching. Hit the like button. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't. And let's grow the channel. Thank you so much. Goodbye.